Hey everyone, this is Ebony Cruz, your entrepreneur coach, helping you transition 100% into full-time entrepreneurship, running that business and not juggling the side hustle. All right, so today we're going to talk about creating that budget for outsourcing. We have been talking about just outsourcing and what that looks like, trying to determine who and what you need to outsource. But now we're going to actually get into the budgeting of that space. We're going to get into the budgeting of that space. All right, so let me just go ahead and jump on into what are some of the direct costs of outsourcing. And you need to look at it if you're doing a single developer and or you're doing a development team. All right, so one thing I like to look at first is let's first start about thinking about what services are we outsourcing. So for this video, I'm only going to talk about if you're outsourcing anything IT, web development, or like product development, stuff like that. I'm kind of going to be in that space. I'm not going to go into the space of like accounting outsourcing or copywriting outsourcing, because copywriting could be a little bit different. It could be words per minute depending on who you contract with. All right, so if we're going with a single developer, all right, so here's some things that you may need to know. You may need to understand some of their technology requirements that you're going to need with a single developer, and if this is an expert in this particular field, because some single developers may be great at actually developing the website in itself, but they may not be awesome at doing the funnel development. So you need to understand exactly what this single developer, like what their expertise is, what that field is, and from there you can definitely tap into that space. Now, some folks do some offshore IT destinations or contractors, such as like India, the Philippines. Now that cost could be a little bit lower, roughly sometimes there's about 25 per hour, just ranges, versus someone in the United States, and that could range from 50 to 150 an hour. So it just kind of varies, but again, it also makes sure that you are clear on the tasks that you're going to be giving. So in my last video yesterday, I talked about making sure you understand what are these tasks that your contractor is going to be doing. All right, so cost saving on hiring a single developer. Well, by paying only for the hours that the remote developer works, that will save you money. So sometimes if some of my clients have like little tedious things, I may charge a 5-hour tech packet of $225. So $225 gets you 5 hours of tech packets, which can typically help you out when it comes to updating some copy on your site or changing some photos. Those 5 hours can go a long way. So if you have a small project, you might not want to book an entire contract. You may just want to book some hours, right? And I'm not going to say contract, because booking hours is kind of like booking a contract. But you may not want to book long term. You may just want to have the option of booking hourly. And that could be more cost effective, because $225 versus a $3,000 contract makes a world of a difference. Now, if you're hiring a development team, so this is a little bit different, especially like, say for instance, I'm using my entire team to do your project, right? So your development team may consist of one, creating a complex project such as a website that may have an online application, may also include some video. May also in video editing in that space, also copying and graphics and SEO. That's a complex project, so that's a lot of work and a lot of pieces moving. So that single developer could be working on it, but they also could have a team that's doing it. So the price may vary in that space as well. All right, so in that case, you're looking for a developer, a designer, you're looking for a QA specialist, so that's quality assurance, quality assistance, and you're also looking for a project manager. So that's why you have an entire team, because you need someone to follow that project all the way through, and not just one person is going to do that. They probably could, but just based on experience, it can be a little bit high. So on average, the cost of a team could range you a minimum, depending on your project, $5,000 up to $36,000 per month. Again, it just depends on the project in itself. And so this is when I like to make sure that those that are outsourcing, you're looking for you're onboarding an expert team as an extension of your in-house team. So you're looking for a team that's going to actually add on as a great extension to what you're already doing or who you already are working with. They're just kind of that expert in that space. All right, so think about that budget. And also think about, what they're going to be dedicated to. So some of the cost savings on hiring a team is you're getting a complete product team. You don't have one person here that's doing copy, the other person doing design, another contractor doing, website development. It's all in one house, it's one space, right? And sometimes that's a little bit easier versus you're trying to make an appointment to talk to this person on this team or from this contractor and talk to this contractor, and everyone's not on the same page. So the thing about hiring a team cost effectively is that you get a complete production team. Everyone from the front end of development to the back end of development, every maintenance, support, you get all of that in one. All right, so a full product development team is someone that is managing the entire project or your product development. So this particular team is a little bit different. They're brainstorming around the area or the idea of creating the MVP to launching this product of yours, right? So you may have a complex product or a software architectural website to build. And so you need some ideas to get this thing off the ground, right? You need someone to help you do a soft launch, some scaling of the product. Now that's going to run you a little bit more because now you're using the thought process of someone who's an expert in that field. And I keep going back to the expert in that field because you want someone that has done this before, have experience in it, not someone who's just a creative. Yeah, I could be a creative, but I don't know how to implement it and making sure it happens. And something like that, ensuring that you have the expert on your team, that can run you a good $20,000 to $70,000, but you're getting definitely a full product development team, right? Product development is a little bit different than just kind of launching that website because it's product development. There's software requirements that you're looking for, there's size complexity, there's team requirements, there's time to build, there's that beta testing phase. There's a lot of spaces in that phase, especially when you're developing a product. And so the more you invest, of course, obviously the best, service that you'll probably get. And that's not always the case if you didn't thoroughly interview your person or the team. All right, so direct cost of outsourcing is, you're paying for the service, right? There's either on-site visits or there's virtual visits. You're paying for all these consultations, these technical consultations. So you should be able to meet with your outsourcing team. You should be able to contact them as much or however. Like I said, in my business, I use Slack a lot to work with all of my teams and communicate, but we also use Monday, that's our project development software, to send in different requests that we need to get done for a particular project, but we're all on the same page. So cost of hiring, how that typically works in the beginning, once at this point you got your budget, you know what you can afford monthly. You're not doing hourly, you're doing a whole production team, so you have that cost ready, like you already have done this in your budget. So next you're going to create that request or proposal. And typically, in my case, I normally always create the proposal for the client. That shouldn't be your responsibility. So whoever you're working with should create that proposal for you. And definitely, again, you're screening. At this point, you should have already screened your contractors. Now, from a contractor side, I also screen my applicants, because if someone is not giving me the work, or they haven't produced the content that we're requesting, or maybe they don't have photos, or maybe they're not as responsive, especially when setting up that consultation, that might not be my ideal client. And as you being the customer, you might not be their ideal client as well. So you want to make sure that you are ready to definitely pull up the bootstraps and get it going, and you're working with whomever you decide to book. All right, so also negotiating the terms. At this point, you should have already negotiated the terms. How long are we meeting? How frequently are we meeting? What are some deadlines? What documentation needs to be provided? Those are things that is going to help you when you're creating the actual contract. Like when that contract is getting signed, sealed, delivered, you want to make sure that you know exactly what is in there and what you are paying for. All right. So typically, I like to make sure that the scope of project is clear. You are giving me the scope of project. The service level is agreement, right? We have that. The metrics, that's all in that space of service levels, so you know what metrics you want your contractor to meet. And the deliverables, like what is the goal of this project? What should this person deliver to you? Also, payment and structure, you know, set the terms of when you are paying, how frequently you're paying, how much you're paying, and any terms and conditions of that contract. So if certain metrics aren't being made, you can say, hey, this hasn't been done, you know, at this point, you know, if work hasn't been completed by 2 or 3 deadlines, you're never going to terminate this contract. But again, you cannot terminate something that you're not being an active part in. So when you begin to outsource, start thinking about that, and start thinking about a really legit budget that you can consistently, you know, afford monthly to outsource. Now, one thing about outsource when you're transitioning, the cost of knowledge to someone else, because that's what you're doing. It's the cost of transitioning or knowledge transfer. You're paying someone else for their knowledge, right, or for their skill set. So that is basically what outsourcing is. But what it does is that it allows you to free up some more time. However, it forces you into more management because you got to make sure you're staying on top of this person, this team that's not in your reach, right? They might be virtual in the day and age that we're in. So, you know, your cost of management services go up. Like you're now the manager of this project in your own type of way, or you're working with the project manager. All right. So just kind of know in that space, you know, what exactly are the actual tasks that you're looking for. What I've noticed and what I've come across in my line of work is that, you know, I'll have someone that comes in and saying, hey, you know, I want some SEO optimization on my website. Ebony, you know, I also want, you know, the pretty videos. I want to be on social media. I want you to post 3 or 4 times a day. I want you to also create the content. You know, they're giving me this beautiful list of, you know, my wish list or whatever, or their wish list. And so I always tell them to break it down. And what are the must-haves? What are the must-haves right now? Because all the glitz and glam sounds amazing until you get the proposal with the estimate. And you're like, oh my goodness. All right. So make sure you're understanding what is the main key thing that needs to be done now, right? And then what is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3? So if we go back to some of my videos earlier in the week, I spoke about, you know, really clearly defining what you're looking for and how long you're going to be with this person. I typically try to encourage long-term partnerships because at this point, you've gotten a feel for how this person works. They know what your business goals are. They know your business messaging. And so they can just keep adding on to what they've already done versus you always looking for someone new. All right. So I hope these tips helped you all out today as it relates to outsourcing your budget. Being very clear, are you doing one developer, a development team, or a production team? Like, what are you actually looking for? And understand that not everyone that you reach out will be your perfect match, right? You are interviewing someone else to add a positive A+ rating extensive team to your current team, or just to you, to your business. And you want to make sure that you are thoroughly looking for this group of people or this one particular person, but you also clearly know what goals and tasks you need to have completed before you even go through the contract stage. All right. So again, hope this video helped. I'll see you all tomorrow. We're going to get into the actual interviewing of your contractors, questions to ask, things to request to see if they have done some of the work, or if they're just saying, yep, just to get you as a client. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow, and I hope you've learned a few things. And I love to ask you a question in today's video. It would be more so, what if you could outsource? What area if you could outsource in your business?